Welcome to Palette Widgets. TouchDesigner comes with a suite of useful UI widgets that you can use to build quick interfaces. You can find these widgets by navigating to the top left menu, clicking on the palette icon, and then scrolling down and clicking on the Basic Widgets section. Here you'll find a list of helpful elements that you'd expect in a UI toolkit. Let's take a look at some of these. So button momentary, if I click and drag that on my network, I can add it. If I make it viewer active, I can now interact with this button. You'll notice here on the right side in my parameter dialog that value 0 will toggle on and off momentarily when I interact with this button. We also have our button toggle that acts like the name implies, so I can toggle on that value 0 and I can also toggle it off and it will stay on or stay off. We can also scroll down here. Let's go ahead and add a slider 2D. This slider 2D is really cool. I can move this slider on this 2D axis, and then value 0 corresponds to the x-axis, and then value 1 corresponds to the y-axis. Let's also add, we have here a horizontal slider. If we make that viewer active, we can see that acts like a traditional slider, which is a really helpful and really useful tool. Let's go ahead and box select all of these and turn off the viewer active flag, because what we're going to do next here is we're going to create an interface using these elements. Let's add a window header and place that to the top here on our widgets. And let's now change this label. I'm going to go ahead and change this label to be my new UI. Perfect. And let's double click on our network, add a container component, and copy and paste that a few times. Perfect. So here on our left side, we want to create an interface with our widgets. And then on the right side, we're going to add a movie player that we can connect to our widgets. So first things first, I'm going to box select. I have to click on one of these first, box select them, and then connect them to my container too. Great, we can see them all connected here. And then on my container too, let's go ahead and navigate to the children page and change the align parameter to top to bottom. Perfect, we see that they're top to bottom. My new UI header is at the bottom though, so I'm going to click on window header, click on that widget, go to layout, align order, set that to -1. Now that will place that at the top because it uses 0 by default. So we'll put -1 to move it to the top. And you'll notice here our widgets are getting cut off. And that's because widgets by default have a width of 450. So if we click on our container 2 on the layout page, we can change our width to 450. And now they're ready to go. If we connect container 2 to container 1, we can see that we have filled our entire container, and that's because we never changed our width and height for our container 1. So let's go ahead and change that to 1280 by 720. Perfect. We can see that we have our container 1 here. We want to make sure though that our height matches our first container. So what we can do is let's click on the height of container 1, drag it onto container 2, and let's drop it on that height, select reference. Great, now we have our container 2 with the correct height. On the look page, let's change the background to gray and set background alpha to 1. Now we have this left panel here nicely situated, perfect. Let's work on our container 3. I'm going to double click on the network, add a movie file in top, and I'm going to go ahead and change that to the Nature Movie 1 video. I'm going to right click on my movie and I want to make sure that I add a level because we're going to go ahead and adjust the levels of this video. Then I'm going to right click on my level and add a null top. Perfect. We're going to drag this null top onto our container 3 and select background top. Alrighty, now that we have this background, let's just check here on our look page. We want to make sure that top fill is set to fill best so that we aren't stretching our video. Now we can connect our container 3 to our container 1 and we see that it's in there, but it's awfully small. So let's check our layout page. Well, first thing, we have our width and our height. We should change our width to 1280 minus 450 because of our container 2. And then our height should be the height of our parent. So let's drag the height of our parent onto our height, select reference, and now we can see that our sizing is better, but we're stacked on top of each other. So on our container 1, we can go to the children page, align, set align left to right, which will go ahead and move that container over. Perfect. Now what we can do is our slider horizontal. Let's drag that over here. Let's click on our level. Let's go ahead and use this slider to control our invert parameter. So if we click on our slider horizontal, click on the value 0, and then drop it onto our invert and select bind. Now, if we go to our container 1 and click view, let's move that here to the center, and then move our slider, we can see how we're using our slider to go ahead and control our video. You can go ahead and experiment by building interfaces using these widgets from the palette to create a really quick interface. And yeah, that's a quick look at using the palette widgets.